we're going to dive into an exciting new segment we're calling If Climate Tech Were an NBA Legend. So this will be the first time we're doing a bit about the intersection of sports and climate tech. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with it. Shanu and I, when we met on Twitter, we discovered we're both big fans of the NBA, and we thought it'd be fun to try to intertwine that love with our love of climate tech and investing. So let's dive right in. All right, so here's the ground rules of the bit. I'm going to give credit to Bill Simmons. I'm a huge fan of his content. He's always had an interesting way of combining sports, especially the NFL and the NBA, with pop culture and other interesting facets that people that might not be interested in sports might care about, and it's a way to expand our audience. So you and I, both big fans of the NBA here.
Mm-hmm.
The rules are, we talked about this before the show, we're going to each pick 3 NBA players and match them to some kind of clean tech. And we're going to describe why that's a match. So I'm going to go first. Are you okay with that?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. So I'm going to say Steve Nash, one of my all-time favorite players, the conductor of the famous 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to say Steve Nash equivalent in climate tech is VPP, virtual power plants. So on this show previously, we had Jigar Shah with the U.S. Department of Energy describing a lot about virtual power plants and how they're going to be such an important tool in decarbonizing the grid and the global economy. And the virtual power plant, what makes it so special and unique is that instead of adding new, usually fossil fuel driven resources to the grid, when the grid is stressed, when it's really hot, everyone's running air conditioning, instead of doing that, we're going to use software and we're going to use connected devices so that buildings and homeowners can reduce their energy during those times automatically and be paid for that by the utility in this future world. So the reason I say all that was Steve Nash. Steve Nash was a giver, and the Phoenix Suns, because of him at the point guard position and every team he played for, they were better because not only was he a giver and this great point guard who made everyone around him better, but he had this culture, right? When you play with Steve Nash, you became someone who you also became unselfish, and the team, I mean, it's one of my favorite teams of all time, those 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns. They just changed the game at a time when it was getting really stale and getting really slow and getting too isolation driven. And here was this team passing, cutting, moving, shooting. So I'll stop there and let you go next.
No, yeah, that's like a really great. I mean, those Phoenix Suns nightmare. I was a Kobe Bryant guy growing up, and he's like my favorite player of all time. But I just remember those teams eviscerating the Lakers sometimes, and it was like Nash was totally ahead of that. And like I think like a lot of parallels between like a VPP is going to need to have all these signals and figure out how to optimize them in the best way possible, and that's like totally what Nash did. So I think that was a good one. I'm going to start off hot with my current favorite player, and this is my GOAT in the debate. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but I think I put LeBron James as energy efficiency. And the reason I did this, right, is I feel like the contributions to the overall climate tech, and I guess like just decarbonization in general, is probably one of the largest, if not the largest. It's cross-sectoral. It brings the best out of everyone, makes everyone else's job easier, and has massive impact when you compare the cumulative totals of what it does across sectors, right? I mean, I think people forget about it, but the more efficient we get with things, the less new energy we need to create, the less new systems we need to replace, the more we can address other problems. And I think LeBron's done that. I think the other thing that I really liked was the cross-sectoral application, right? Like you can do this in buildings, you can do it in energy systems, you can do it everywhere else. LeBron, doesn't matter what team you throw him on, rosters, coach, he's taking you to the finals. He's going to backpack and he'll do whatever.
Center, is your point guard, could do anything.
And that's why I thought that one was kind of the nice parallel.
That's really good. Well, you took mine. I was going to use LeBron for solar.
Okay.
Similarly, some similar points would say this, like, it's a constant. So in the world of clean tech, even 30 years ago, solar was there and continues to be there, just like LeBron, always there. He's in the finals or the conference finals every year. And then I would also like solar, this idea of knocking it off its perch. Everyone's always like, LeBron is as obvious as it is. He's maybe the greatest player of all time. No one wants to acknowledge it. And it's like solar is the same way. It's like solar just keeps coming. Everyone's like, can't we do better than solar? Or solar's not so sexy. And are we sure solar's going to get us there? And the answer is usually like, yeah, solar's still in the mix, and solar's still really important, just like LeBron.
That's it. Dang. Year. All right. Wow. Those both work. This is a fun. I actually was thinking, I was like, I need to write a paper on this. This is a cool idea.
Yeah, it is. I know. I was actually struggling whittling it down. And so I'm gonna do. I'll do one next because my three were LeBron, Steve Nash, and the one I'm about to get to. But
Okay.
I grew up in the Philadelphia area at a time when Allen Iverson was the king, and he's my favorite player
The
of all
answer.
time.
Let's go.
I was really struggling. I really wanted to get AI in this, and I couldn't figure it out. So I think maybe need some more time to piece it together, or maybe you can go think about it for me. But so I don't have AI. I'm gonna go with Devin Booker here, and my
Ooh,
parallel
okay.
is nuclear energy.
Ah,
And I say that in a way because I think it's this like back in vogue message where nuclear, I don't know, what, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, that was when everyone thought nuclear was going to be the thing that saved us everywhere. It was popular back then as this crazy futuristic technology that was going to give us unlimited energy. And then it slowly over time became out of vogue, and lots of reasons environmentalists challenged the waste and the other challenges that we have with nuclear. But now it's back. And it's as important as anything when people are talking about how do we get to a carbon-free future. And the Devin Booker parallel here is the shooting guard position and the mid-range game, where we talked about Allen Iverson back when in the 90s, when I was younger, the two guard shooting mid-range jumpers was the thing. That was Jordan,
yep.
that was AI, that was Rip Hamilton. I mean, there's so many I'm missing. And then when even the Steve Nash and then the Golden State Warriors turned the whole NBA into a 3-point game, that mid-range two guard model was less in vogue. But Devin Booker has brought it back in a really powerful way, and awesome player. And I think it'll lead to more people considering, oh, maybe we got to go back to this dynamic two guard who can score in lots of different ways. And just like we're thinking in the energy industry, oh, that nuclear thing turns out produces a lot of carbon-free energy. Maybe we should really consider scaling that more these days.
Love that. No, that's awesome, and I think I like that resurgence of the two guard because that's so true. Where it's like that. It's always funny when you look at players when you're like, if you were in the league 20 years ago or 20 years later, like you would have dominated. But it really just does depend on the time. So
Totally.
that's a good one. I have the two other ones, but I think I'll go with storage first. And when I think about storage, and I'm gonna preface the like I'll lead into when I name the name. But if you think about what storage does with the intermittent sources, right? I mean, we typically have this duck curve and we have too much power in one part of the day and not in other parts of the day. And when we add a bunch of storage to the grid, we'll be able to, shift the power so we can charge up during the hours where we have a lot of intermittent renewable power, and then we can discharge that in periods where demand's high and we don't have as much power generation from those sources. And so when I think about that, I think about tempo changes and kind of controlling that tempo. And one of the famous tempo changes I think in league history was the emergence of the Showtime Lakers. So I mean, it was similar a little bit to how you said the Suns in the 7-second offense. I think this is like the OG run and gun, get up the court offense. And I always think of Magic Johnson just orchestrating that tempo change where it was, they needed to push the pace, needed to push it all game. Other times you needed to slow it down, feed Kareem the ball a little bit more, but was in charge of, that run and gun Showtime offense. I just thought of this parallel to storage where, we are changing the momentum of the game. We're going to change when and where to do things. And that just reminded me a lot about Magic and his role with the Showtime Lakers.
That's a great one. And of course, how can you have any lists of NBA legends and not include Magic Johnson?
Gotta have Magic on there.
All right. I don't have any more. My three, I had LeBron. So you want to finish this off with your last one?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think so this one, it can apply to, it's more like the shot for like, so like here, like the example is going to be, this was a weaker one, but it was like, could be Kareem skyhook or Steph's just long ball. And I was going to compare it to hydrogen. And the reason being like, there's this massive potential, like really great technology, but it needs to be in the right setting and used in the right purpose by the right person for it to be truly unlocked, right? Like there's a reason that other people couldn't do the skyhook. There's a reason that people can't ball out like Steph and pull up from 35 feet away and drill them. And it reminded me a lot of hydrogen where it's like in these, unique situations where it's used in the right setting, it can be dramatically transformative to a lot of like really heavy to abate, hard to stop issues. And I think that's what I think of when I think of like a sky hook or the long ball. And so that was kind of my parallel. That one's a little bit weaker than the other ones. And then I'm gonna give you a bonus one. This one's not a legend yet, but I just thought it was kind of funny where I was thinking about like, what was the parallel for like direct air capture or just like DAC? And I was like, all the attributes of like really like being helpful and like all stuff can it scale. And just cause like I'm getting a little annoyed with all the Wembanyama hype. It's like, on paper, it's like, oh, this guy can do everything, but does it translate? Will it translate? Can it scale? And so that was my last one.
I almost had a Wembanyama one too, so that's great. And I don't think the hydrogen example was weak at all. I think that's genius. And I was going to say, what are the like famous unique shots? I came to mind the Dirk Nowitzki, he
Oh yeah,
sticks
the
his
one
leg
leg.
up and shoots
Yeah.
the fadeaway. Well, this has been fascinating. I think climate tech. What we've touched: LeBron, Steve Nash, Devin Booker. Who did you have here? You had the
Magic.
Skyhook,
Yeah.
Magic, and then you're ending with Wembanyama, the future.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Well, that was really fun, Shanu. Let's continue to trade these ideas on Twitter, NBA legends and climate tech. I think it's a good way to bring more NBA fans into the work we do.
Let's do it, man. I love it. Thank you for having me on, and this was a really fun bit.